There you go. Recording started. Just on the point of recording before we get started properly, these are recorded, obviously, and made publicly available. This has always happened. But if at any point you want me to pause the recording or afterwards you want something edited out of the recording, please just get in touch and I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I think lots of people find it helpful to have the record online. I know lots of people go back and watch ones from years ago. So we're not going to stop that, but just to let you know, if you want something edited out, that can be arranged. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. Let's get started with what we did over the summer. It's a slightly later first meeting than normal because September got away from everyone. So it's now October. But over the summer, normally a good time for getting things done over the summer. So in the I'm just trying to find it now. In the agenda, there's a big table. There we go. So feel free to fill stuff in. What have you done this summer? What did you achieve? And then feel free to leave comments on other people's too, and then we'll have a bit of a chat. We have Luke. Wonderful.
Hello. Jason.
We're just filling in the table, and then we're going to have a couple of minutes, and then we'll have a chat. Just giving people some writing time. Jenny seems to have done an awful lot.
HTML and Blackboard Ultra. I know somebody's having a microphone today.
Excellent. Okay. So should we start having a bit of, I see there are lots of comments coming along. Could you want to start? You reached the top of the table.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, so this summer we hosted two digital learning interns that were specifically working to support our Blackboard Ultra migration in the role of an accessibility ally. What that means is that they are then going in and remediating content to make things more inclusive. This wasn't necessarily STEM related work, it was more across the board. So we had two interns. One of them was working specifically with our Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and the other, Yusuf was his name. Yusuf was working all across the other faculties. And predominantly, we actually tried to exclude some of the STEM courses because the training requirements and the lack of established solutions to make things more accessible would not be fair to give that work to an intern. We tried to remove some of those really traditional STEM courses, but you know, you can't escape maths when you're at a university. And Yusuf got stuck with a lot of biological sciences modules, and it was really fun just trying to unpick how we could get through some of that. It was less so about equations, but more so about having effective alternative text in the right places for within the right types of resources. But it was really, really good fun. It was the second time that we've run our Accessibility Allies internship. So the first time we ran it, it was in the summer of 2021, and we averaged an increase on the original scores of about 36%. This time around, we've managed an increase of about 64%. So we've almost doubled just by leveraging a few different AI tools, which made things a lot easier, which is really good fun. Cool.
Sounds good, Luke. Sounds like you've achieved a lot. Jenny
Busy
also
summer.
seems to have achieved a
Yeah.
lot. So student interns, master drop-ins. What do you want to talk? What's a master drop-in?
Yeah, sorry, I realised I should have explained it. It's Mazda is our internal group about maths and stats digital accessibility. But we've started drop-ins so that we've got a quite a big increase in staff across the university now who are interested in creating content specifically for HTML rather than converting, which is going really well. And so we now have a monthly drop-in where staff can come and get some help, like learning how to get started or going through things. So we've got enough people around the university that are really good at using it that can help. And also some of those people that I'm saying are around the university are actually students, because the student interns who worked with the maths department with the maths team, we've accidentally managed to radicalize a whole load of students into being really passionate about maths accessibility, which is fab. So now we've got particularly two of them who have been going out telling all their lecturers that they want to sort their resources out. And did you know you can make it into a Jupyter book? Thanks. Please do that. Oh, and if you need help, you can come to this drop-in. So that's been nice. And this is not me doing all of this. A lot of this is Poppy, who sometimes comes along, is working on it, various people in departments. It's been part of this kind of Mazda group has been doing things and trying to get students more involved.
That sounds really interesting and actually a kind of yeah, something we're going to come back to in the next bit actually. I think that sounds really good. Also doing some Blackboard Ultra stuff, which David's commented on.
Yeah, Blackboard Ultra is actually my life at the minute. That's all I really do is look after physics and chemistry who are moving to Blackboard Ultra. If anybody else is doing Ultra, please talk to me about how it's going. Tell me that it's not just me. But interestingly, we can now get the output from Jupyter Notebooks and Jupyter Book works nicely in Blackboard, which is better than hosting it on GitHub, in my opinion. So if other people are using that workflow, I'm really interested here because I got a slightly worrying thing from Blackboard where they said, this isn't a supported workflow. And I went, oh, but it's really important. Please don't close this workflow down. So yeah, we are as a sort of institution, trying to make sure that they understand why this is important to us, and that being able to, yes, we are just hosting it as a server, it's not integrated, but at least it is better. So it's not content marketplace, it's the content collection. So I've got a Google Doc that explains how to do it. Basically, we learned that you can put it into the content collection and then just link to it. And that gets around most of the problems that you otherwise have. But what somebody's saying about the security measures, this is what worries me, is that things like that might get closed down. Yeah, but it's good to know other people are also doing similar stuff.
Yeah, lots of people working to the same end, which is good. Oh, there's a question. What tools are you using to author in HTML? From Luke.
So we mostly use Jupyter, but some people are using Quarto, which they really like. But our kind of institutionally supported one is Jupyter, because that's the one that Poppy's written a really nice guide to. It's quite easy to get people started with if they want to use that. Some of the biologists are using our book down. But yeah, we support Jupyter because we found it was easiest to get started with, and we could look after people that want to do it. But they can use whatever they want because the HTML content that comes out at the end is the same.
Yeah, sounds helpful. Cool. Anyone got any other? It's interesting seeing different people using different things too. The same end, which is exciting. Having different methods. Cool. Okay, so Charlotte and Hayden. So something I know a bit about actually, but you've um how's it going getting people in the maths department to produce HTML course materials with the help of Vincenzo at Leeds?
I think I would say I'm optimistic. I'm gonna Hayden add something after this maybe. I'm optimistic with how many people kind of tried initially. Basically, I think I'm definitely due to give everyone an update and a reminder, because it's been a little while now. People have had time to play with it. But yeah, it's sort of from the first few days we had a few courses already with like HTML course materials on Blackboard, so that was great. Yeah, so there's been some kind of issues with people's packages not working properly, so we've been trying to compile together a kind of list of possible workarounds and things. So it's going to be the next bit of documentation that we're going to release to people. And yeah, I'm also finishing the template that we're going to distribute to anyone wanting to write a new course. The idea is we sort of give everyone a kind of preamble with the packages that we know work well and some guidance on which ones to avoid and which ones to work around. But hopefully that means that our new kind of big year 1 and year 2 courses will all have HTML accessible course materials. Yeah, thanks very much to Vincenzo for all his help with providing and supporting BookML. We met at the last meeting before the summer, and yeah, since then it's been really, really helpful. Hayden, do you want to add something? I don't hear you, I think.
No, still can't hear you. Sorry. The dangers of an online meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yay.
Sorry. I mean, I don't think there's much else to say I don't think we see the people who are completely ignoring it. We just kind of see people who are reaching out for support. There's people who have gone, okay, this is easy, hits pass, and then just immediately put it on their notes, which is good. It's supposed to work like that, but it doesn't work like that for everyone. And for the people who it doesn't, I don't think they've taken it much further. So it's kind of difficult to know how much work we need to put in to make it completely 100% easy to do. And to what extent some lecturers just need to kind of buckle down and do a little bit of messing with it.
Yeah, I think that's quite a common. We've rolled something out. We've got the people who are happy to do it, and then when you have to kind of dig deep to find the next tranche of people to slowly talk to.
I think we're hoping that there's some kind of critical mass that we can achieve with enough people sort of doing this successfully that they talk to colleagues and people kind of see these courses with these fancy shiny new course materials and think that, oh, actually it looks pretty cool. So we're not hoping for even necessarily majority adoption rate immediately, but some kind of critical mass, which then over the years will eventually grow to, I'm going to say 100%. I'm going to be very optimistic.
Yeah, well, that's the dream. Cool. Well, thank you. So moving on a bit. Daniel, sounds fun with solar eruption data. But maybe we'll gloss over that and talk a bit more about accessible documents from LaTeX. You just dipping a toe into that. That's a yeah, a bigger pond, I feel.
I think my vague hope is that Blackboard Ultra will finally bring itself up to scratch from a maths point of view, so we can make more direct use of that kind of thing. But it seems to have stalled from the call that's on what they called they got a comments thing that I'm on. So yeah. So fingers crossed for the future.
Yeah, I think that's a yeah, well later on Luke will give us an update on the letter we sent to them about that. Jim, did you have something you wanted to say?
Sorry about that. Couldn't unmute myself. No, I was just, since people mentioned successful LaTeX, I wondered whether, I'm sure this could come up anywhere, but I've been noticing some news in email lists and blogs and so on about progress with producing PDF UA. And people saying that finally some of the rendering engines are getting close to producing accessible PDFs, solving the tagging issues and so on. And so I wondered if it's been difficult to keep up, and some of it seems quite technical and difficult, but I wondered if anybody else had heard about it.
Yeah, well, I think there was a long discussion on our mailing list, partly about that. Does anyone here particularly want to give an update? It's their ongoing LaTeX project that seems to have crossed another milestone, which is really nice to hear, but it's not at the end of the road yet. Luke.
Yeah, this is one of those ones. So I've been following this for maybe 3 years now, since it started getting a lot of traction, and largely it has made a lot of progress. So at the moment, you can get it working in your own sort of LaTeX environments, and it's also supported on Overleaf as well, which is a SAS alternative to LaTeX, which is quite popular, particularly at higher education establishments. They have a website. I'll just pop a link in there as well. Their latest version of how to make an accessible PDF from LaTeX. It's pretty useful, but the most useful part, I think, is it has links in there that take you through to working examples that they have on their GitHub, so that you can take their working example and use it almost as a template to then populate your own content and then see how that performs then. from my own experience of doing this, it works really, really well with simple things like problem sheets. However, as soon as you start adding more complex file types, something like a Beamer file, for example, it won't tag accurately and it will really struggle with things like that. So it's a really, really neat solution for where it is in terms of its own development. But I still think we have a long way to go because LaTeX is such a behemoth to try and to put some structure behind it. There's so much you can do with that typesetting system that actually retrofitting tagging back into it is going to be quite an undertaking, and it's all community led as well. So in terms of development, it's naturally going to be slower than as if another kind of place took it on. The only other thing that I would also warn people, it's not really a warning, more of a caution. It's a caution. The caution I would share is that if you're going to be using tagging, just be aware that the Adobe PDFs don't really support FML very well or at all. So even though it looks as if it's tagged really, really nicely, somebody who needs to interpret that content with a screen reader will still struggle to do so, and will probably still be knocking on your door asking for a HTML alternative. But it's a really, really good thing to have if we can establish it as a de facto format, and then we can move down into those more specialized alternative formats if we need to.
Yeah, I see Vincenzo's typing, but I guess we hit the problem that PDF itself is. There's the accessibility of LaTeX,
Yes.
and then there's the accessibility of PDF, and they're different things.
Yeah,
It's okay, Vincenzo. We welcome it. Yeah. So HTML, I think lots of people are seeing probably as a better aim than PDF. Oh, what have I done? Something. So Vincenzo, getting something from Overleaf, which we were just talking about, into HTML, that would be that would make lots of lecturers a very happy group of people. How's that going?
Yes, I mean, this is basically materialized last week, so that's why I'm saying it's really preliminary. Yeah, I mean, in this testing now, and I've put a template in the document. So actually, if some of you wants to try it, that would be great. It requires a paid account because you need to push from Overleaf to GitHub, to a private repository, and then GitHub is going to run BookML, LaTeXML, and all of it on the documents, and create a bunch of zip files. So yeah, I'd be very curious if somebody wants to try and see what happens. And there are even no instructions right now. Sorry about that. This really, maybe I should talk about this like next month in the next meeting when it's more ready. But if somebody wants to try that, it's over there now.
Yeah, I think well, I'll definitely go have a look. There's a load of stuff I've got to convert in a bit, so that would actually be really helpful. Good timing. But yeah, I guess we'll look forward to hearing more about this maybe next time where it's a bit more fully fleshed out. Yeah, good. James, Glasgow, short course using HTML instead of LaTeX. So do you just go straight into HTML, and how did you find that process?
Yeah, so just a quick bit of background. So I'm not in the maths department. I'm in student learning development. So we run like a transitions course for all of the incoming first year students. So one of my colleagues, Jenny August, last year, she did her notes in HTML. I was trying to convert them from LaTeX to HTML, and it was not fun. So this year I just decided, right, just going straight in HTML, not going to faff around trying to go into LaTeX first. So we did it in R Markdown, worked perfectly fine. I think because the content was, it's simple content, not a massive amount of, difficult material, it was quite easy to convert in that, to have it in that format. The purpose of the course is to get the students used to what things are going to be like at university. So hopefully getting them used to the fact that, hey, this HTML notes is accessible. Hopefully that'll encourage them, to ask staff if there's any issues in any of their other courses. And then at the same time we were going through our old resources, and I found a whole load of PowerPoint student could access that were just filled with screenshots of things. So I just went back through, and if I could remove it and replace it with either a HTML or with a equation, slightly more accessible, then I did that, but made sure it all linked back to the document, made sure it had the right numbers and everything, and so they could easily look it up as a supplementary material as well. So just a small thing, but I think something useful, hopefully, for the students to use and get used to.
Yeah, I think those kind of tidying jobs are definitely good things that happen over the summer, and we think we can dismiss them as, oh, we've done one small thing, but actually they can make the world of difference to some people. We're also kind of hitting back at that point that we kind of regularly come back to, of we've solved the problem for maybe some maths and some maybe more, I know we always struggle with words here, but that kind of general level of I'm doing some kind of science degree, I need some kind of maths, but maybe struggle with the harder level physics, maths departments and people with weirder notation. Josh, accessible presentations.
So yeah, this is well, a lot of this is not my work. So but supporting an intern who's put together some very general guidance. So not just specific to STEM, just around kind of how to obviously deliver things accessibly. That's a kind of a big chunk of how students interact with like teaching staff at university. So kind of with a mind of obviously making the thing in the lecture like accessible, making the recording accessible, making the resources accessible beforehand. So kind of looking at that as a kind of a whole package to like that's an accessible presentation. That's what we're kind of meaning by accessible presentation. There are some links there as well. There's also been some remediation work as well. So looking at existing Moodle courses and then just supporting interns, doing some remediation, and then also kind of communicating this stuff to staff, which is the other kind of missing piece in like that kind of engagement stuff. So and then some other bits of accessibility work in the background as well. Like we might get a proper accessibility policy. We might have someone whose job it is to actually do this rather than lots of sort of goodwill around the university. So there's like good stuff happening, just a bit slowly.
Oh, excellent. That sounds like a productive time. Okay, I'm next. I just uploaded lots of websites. So, there we go. Thomas. Thomas, it doesn't matter. We're all at different stages, and this is good. There's not one path. So everyone's welcome and everyone's doing something, so that's okay. Ally rollouts, I think lots of people have things to say about that. I know that's something lots of people have gone through here. What else? Inclusive practice committee to address inclusion. To be fair, having the policy is very, very helpful. Luke?
Yeah, just with the Ally rollouts, I'm looking at some of the data that's reported on Ally. I'll try and explain it as I go. So within the Ally administrator dashboard, there is something called the courses.csv file, whereby you can download a standard CSV file of all of the live data. If you have a look inside that, it would be worth checking the measurement between the what you see is what you get score and the individual file score. Both of those scores have an unknown forbidden recipe as to how to get to that overall score that module leaders see or instructors see. We've asked Anthology if they could give us more information about how that score is determined. They haven't been very forthcoming with it, but the reason I mention this is because in some of our courses, as we're moving on to Blackboard Ultra, we've been sort of reviewing the impact of accessibility scores in doing so. And there's been a few discrepancies in terms of we've had modules that have scored really highly, like way into the 80% on Ally, which is quite high, but their file score is way down in like the less than 10% score, and they have not that much content on the course. So it's trying to work out that ratio between what you see as what you get content and the file score content, and how it actually puts forward an overall accessibility score. We've I would love to hear the answer, Jenny. We put a ticket into Anthology, and so far it's gone to line 1, line 2, and now waiting for a subject matter expert to give us a response rather than an answer, I'm sure. It's a weighted average.
So I spent 2 weeks in a pen pal relationship with somebody at Blackboard about this, where I kept asking more and more questions because I did the same as you, got the CSV, went, oh, this is cool, I love data, what can I do? I can't share it with you because it's got all of our sensitive data in, but I've got a presentation that I did to our team about it, and I'm just trying to look back at it. But essentially it is a weighted average, which means that you can, if you go along the CSV, you can see all of the different things it's pulling in. If you've got STEM courses, one of the big things that can mess that up is multiple choice questions, because a multiple choice question, an item is anything where you've used the WYSIWYG editor, but also an image could be an item. So a multiple choice question can have the question, 4 answers, a piece of feedback, and that's then causing your file score to go up hugely, because we had some which had hundreds of thousands on, and I think it was to do with that.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Try and put that into an email that is more useful. I was just trying to see if I had anything that I could share, but I think everything's got our data in, so it's too sensitive to share. But basically, we had a thing where the WYSIWYG score had gone up, the file score had gone up, but the overall score had gone down. And that's because it's a weighted average for how many files there are versus how many WYSIWYG content items there were. And Blackboard sort of confirmed that to me.
Okay.
Because I kept saying to them, is this your formula? Do you do this or do you do this? And I can almost replicate it within a percentage by doing the weighted averages.
Okay. Yeah, if you could summarize it in an email for me, you'd certainly be getting a Christmas card from me this year.
Yeah, I think lots of us would be interested in hearing more about that. I'm keeping my thoughts about accessibility scores and how terrible they are separate, and will not go into that, but I do have a long rant.
Would you like my short rant, which is that the person who won our digital award 2 years ago for his work on maths accessibility, his course went down by 15%. So we've got a clear and beautiful example of why it's wrong.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into accessibility scores right now. Yes.
The only, it's a fun thing to mention as well. My tidbit that I have with Ally is we were using it during the summer to remediate courses, and we were using that data as our sort of driver behind that. And then we came across an academic who was asking for support because they had a severe vision impairment. And then suddenly, you know what, all of the things we were doing to improve that content actually didn't make much impact on their unique individual experience. And it very quickly turned into, okay, let's focus on designing for practices that benefit somebody with a vision impairment, which we didn't see the score increase very much at all, but their experience was changed quite dramatically.
I think that's the problem. At the heart of accessibility, you're trying to serve different people's needs, and you can't do that in one way. So actually sticking a number on something is completely artificial, because you might have to do different things for different people.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. Christian, guidelines for accessible teaching sounds really interesting.
Yeah, this is something I can't give you a link to yet because I want to get the head of school's approval before sending it to everybody, but I can show you, hopefully. Sorry for joining late, by the way. I have a regular team meeting on Tuesday mornings and it always overruns. So hopefully I'm sharing the right screen now. Yeah, so
Luke, are you
Is someone talking? Yeah. So Scarlett Spackman, who I think has attended 1 or 2 of these meetings in the past, worked with me over the summer. And after Scarlett did some stuff on digital accessibility and like looking at our course material last year. I wanted her to look at just more general aspects of accessibility in our teaching this year. So she's done some quite good jobs putting together a reading list. Actually, there's a beastie bibliography that she's read through, which I don't know, will be interesting to somebody. But she's got some good stats about our numbers of students disclosing disabilities and tried to break it down by kinds of disability. So I'm showing some graphs that are going up, basically. So that's the number of disclosures over time. And then also, yeah, we've got the data in numbers there. And what I wanted her to do was to try and build the case among lecturers who claim they don't get it, for why they should do things, why they should bother about accessibility, and what a difference it'll make. So she's got a list of things that we hear from lecturers that about why they can't do stuff or why they won't do stuff, and sort of evidence-based reasons that that's not the case. So why they should record lecture videos, why you should try and anticipate common design access needs rather than responding case by case, and that students will disclose their disabilities, which we don't believe, or that they were given advantage. Yeah, so but the main bit of it is, I think, a big long list of things you can do to help, how to do it, some hints about what to do, who it will benefit. We have this thing called a supportive practice tool, which someone in our EDI team put together, that says, like, for certain reasonable adjustments, who it will help. No, it's the other way around. For certain disabilities, what reasonable adjustments should be. Anyway, that or its transpose is useful. So she's got loads of good stuff about that. And then asked her a little bit to think about why lecturers might find these things hard to follow, because I really don't want to just be telling lecturers off and giving them more work to do. I think being a little bit compassionate and saying, yes, like, you've just been handed this course in week 2. Of course, you can't give the students the full notes 2 weeks in advance. Yeah, so that, I think, will be a good bit of work and something we can build on, adding in more stuff. And I think hopefully it would complement the stuff that this group has put out on the website as well, and the York stuff. Yeah, so I will share a link to that when I'm able, when the head of school gets round to looking at it.
Yeah, that looks like a very impressive bit of work, actually, and having that very evidenced, persuasive backing is always helpful.
Yeah, I wish that we'd maybe got a few more examples of things in. I think lecturers, I mean, most lecturers won't read it, and the ones that we want to read it won't read it. So I really wanted to sort of distill it a bit, and Scarlett's going to produce a poster, which will hopefully put it in even simpler terms. Yeah, so there's a bit more to do on it.
There's always a bit more to do. This actually leads us very nicely into the next bit, which is there's been lots of talk over the summer and the last kind of couple of months. Lots of people saying they find this group helpful for various things, but they such as these discussions, which are very helpful, and I always really enjoy them and seeing what different people are doing. But different people who are maybe wanting to get started, there are different stages, or they want some support with something. So a bit like Vincenzo and Charlotte. And Luke and me were thinking it'd be good if we could kind of actually get a kind of more concrete snapshot about where we are and what we're doing. And we have you all who come to these meetings regularly, although we do have some new faces today, which is exciting, and you know, we hear a lot from, but we also have the mailing list's massive. There are lots of people on this mailing list who never come to a meeting, but they are engaging to some degree. And it would be good to kind of hear what they want and what kind of support they want. So we're not always, for example, turning to Christian when someone's doing something Chiron-y, because that would probably be better for everyone. So we were thinking of doing a kind of big snapshot survey. So a kind of longer form survey. This isn't going to be like a 2 minutes, I've got 2 minutes to fill it in thing, but a kind of longer form, maybe a half-hour type activity where we just see where we all are. I know there is lots of duplicate work. We kind of saw that just then a bit, actually. Lots of people working on the same or similar things, or people wanting the same thing. So things like that document Christian was just showing us, lots of people want to sit down and have, this is the piece of research that shows lecturers why they should do this, or this is the first getting started steps. So it'd be good to kind of be able to share that and maybe even out the workload, because there were lots of us here, and it sort of seemed and we're at different stages. So it'd be good to kind of help new people get started, even out the workload between those who have been around for a while, and things like that. Does anyone have any kind of things they'd be particularly interested in knowing about, or thoughts on that?
I think from my point of view, one of the most valuable things that I get from this meeting is it's seeing the different approaches on how people engage with their academics, and particularly with their leadership teams, to get buy-in for this type of area. I think it's not lost on anyone that usually this type of work is centered or rests with a handful, sometimes even just one knowledgeable person in that area for each organization. And it would be I find this type of conversation easier to have, to then say, actually, no, look at what other institutions are doing. This is how they're provisioning this type of area, and we need to resource it a bit more adequately. And I think that's something that I find really, really useful. So things like Christian's master sheet just there, having that be those pieces of research indicates like, okay, this is a big piece of work. Let's not just put one person towards it. Let's try and resource it as an ongoing business as usual project, which makes things, I think, a little easier going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's also something about that organizational side. So I'm was interested to hear about Jenny's master group, and actually having that kind of a group approach. I think there's also we talk a lot, we sometimes get quite technical about how do you actually convert a bit of maths into something. But actually there is a whole side of this too, which is how do you get lecturers to buy, and how do you get your university to buy, and how do you get anyone to buy in? And how do you get students actually? So that's another reason actually I was interested to hear about Jenny kind of, radicalizing students. So how can we radicalize students across the country? Cool. Is there anything else that anybody would actually be particularly interested in hearing about? So I think there's going to be a section on kind of, what accessibility work are you doing? There's going to be a section on how you organized, a section on how are you getting this buy-in. Is there any other big section that maybe we're missing that you'd be interested in hearing more about how other people are doing stuff? Vincenzo?
Yes, one thing I don't know how to do in Leeds, and I would like to know how people are doing it, is just how do you find evidence that these measures are successful with students? So we're going to try and running a focus group now, but this is, again, it's another thing that is very preliminary. We don't quite know how to do it, so we're going to start very small, see what the students are saying, and also not just the students with disabilities, also how it's affecting the other students, like everybody. So how do people measure that? That would be my question. Yeah, thank you.
That's a very good point. How do we've had the rant that accessibility scores are bad, so what should we do instead? Yeah, we need to, as Jim says, evaluate the policy and practice. So that's a good point. Yeah, and I know I say this a lot, but now I think about it, I'm not sure where the evidence is. Doing accessibility is not just about disability work. It's not just supporting disabled students. It's supporting everyone. But yeah, it's important that we have data to back this all up. I know there were some small bits out there. There's a study York, one of the lecturers did in York, which looked at some a course, but that's again small studies. Anything else? I mean, yes, that's a way of evaluating practice, but again, it's a bit labor intensive for, again, one person. And yeah, maybe there are different ways of doing this. Hayden.
This is maybe slightly off topic, but I would be interested to hear people's thoughts on Moodle/Stack, as that kind of, my job is mostly Stack, basically. And I'm kind of aware of some of the bits, but I would love to hear everyone's like actual thoughts on that, as I've heard that has been possibly discussed in the past.
I think we are using different tools and different people are using it. And I think it would also, I've kind of got in my mind, it'd be nice to have a kind of map of the country of who's using what where, because we kind of I always go Stack, Edinburgh, Highron, Newcastle, and that's not true. These things are used elsewhere, but it'd be nice to see that. And actually, yeah, Luke's right. It's not just about which tools. It's also who's using Moodle, who's using it's called in its various guises. And it'd be good to get that kind of a wider idea. Josh.
Sorry, just mentioning on just on the mention of tools. Yeah, I think that'd be quite useful on the wider thing. And I know you were saying about we're Moodle users, so all this stuff around Ultra, I'm happy I'm not part of that. But in terms of talking to vendors, so for, what one that is kind of a long-standing thing is Mentimeter. This is really great for engagement in some ways, but that they're on their like sort of tracker in terms of getting things moving. There's lots of requests for, can you improve things? And that's just been sitting there for ages. So yeah, in terms of, thinking about some of the tools, and I guess, when people are looking at it from an accessibility side, which we're not very good at doing, onboarding new tools, like there's also the STEM accessibility, which is like another kind of level. So yeah, again, sharing those sort of odd tools that kind of sit around our sort of main VLEs, as well as kind of big things like Stack, Numbas, and all those as well.
Yeah, you're right. And actually that kind of gives us more clout if we can say we know X number of universities are using Mentimeter to teach maths. Please improve your maths accessibility. It's always helpful to have that kind of data and justification behind it. I see some people are typing. Actually, while we're kind of talking about pushing people, does Luke want to give us an update on where we got with our letter of protest?
I don't want to, because it's very disappointing. The person that I emailed to it, Ivan, has since left Anthology, so now I'm back to Route 1. But I want to resend the letter this Friday, I think. So I've gone through. Thank you to those who made comments on the letter. Those comments have been absorbed into the content and have been actioned to reflect those comments. And I'm going to send the letter on Friday. I'm thinking of sending it to Dom Gore, who's one of their senior project manager VPs. Lots of letters, I'm sure, because they are quite invested and they've been with Ally since the very beginning. So it'd be interesting to see what their response is, given that they've been there since Ally was launched, and how they'll have a good understanding of why we want this tool to work with this subject and with this content area. But I'm going to send that over through on Friday, and I'll let everyone know when that's done on the mailing list.
Then thank you. So yeah, it'd be. We'll see if we can have some joint group pressure. Might work better than individual. Well, in line or with lots of individual pressure too. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. Does anybody else have anything else they want to discuss or bring up? Or Luke?
It's possibly the world's smallest AOB, but Josh talking about Mentimeter reminded me. VBox now supports LaTeX characters. I've not done a big investigation into this, but they do have a nice help page explaining what it is and what it's all about. So I don't know if anyone else is a VBox user in terms of their organization, but it's another student response system, so it seems like it should work quite well. Just something to try out if you are a VBox user, or if you want to start using VBox, it's a reason to start.
What is VBox? Let's do the quick for those who don't know.
Yeah, so VBox is a student response system. So you build questions, quizzes, forms, but it's designed to be used in synchronous and asynchronous environments. So it's a pretty good tool. There's a lot that you can do with it. They are, at least we have found with their product development, they're quite accustomed to making changes based on accessibility. So we, about 2 years or so ago now, we provided some feedback about they had a question type, which is put a pin on an image to represent where the answer is. And we fed back like this is really engaging, but it wouldn't work with somebody who relies on keyboard only navigation. So they, for the time being, they then disabled that tool, that question type. And 2 weeks later, they've then put in a feature on how to place a pin using keyboard only navigation. And it was a pretty quick win. And it was like, oh, okay, they mean business. This is a nice vendor to work with in this area. So we're quite happy to work with VBox, and they're quite open to taking on feedback on their product as well.
Sounds wonderful. Cool. So that's very good news. Anybody got anything else, or? Okay. In which case, I guess we can finish a couple of minutes early and have a slightly longer lunch.
I don't mind.
Okay, lovely to see everyone. And we'll have another meeting, probably sneak one in before Christmas, so early December. But yeah, have a nice day, and we'll see everyone soon.
If you're happy to do it,
thank you, Cordelia, and thank you for chairing so well. Superstar.
Thank you.